All right, welcome into your Friday Dropping Dimes edition. Today's show is going to be a lot like Wednesdays. It's going to be driven by you in the chat and whatnot. And if you want to join, there's an email address that is listed at the top of the chat, and you can join me over there. We'll see, how that goes. Wednesday's chat was lively as can be with I don't know how many comments and people just chiming in left and right. So if you want to join, just let me know over there and we'll get you in. We're going to talk about last night's game and then the looming game tonight and whatever else anyone else wants to talk about. So once again, go to droppingdimeshow@gmail.com and hit me up over there and I'll send you the link and you can join in on the show and just give me your 2 cents. Pop in, let me know what you want to talk about, and then I'll have you on for a few minutes and then we'll drop you out and have somebody else on just to basically pick them up as they go. But man, what a game last night. Really thought the Celtics had it. And it's crazy that a zone defense can be that befuddling to a group of professionals. Flat out, they're playing man in the first half. The Heat are, and they're getting torched. I mean, the Celtics put up 60 points in the first half, and then in the second half, barely cracking 40. And especially the third quarter. I mean, they just got trucked in the third quarter, and it's just crazy to watch. Like at the opening of that game, the first half, my biggest takeaway was, maybe instead of sitting back, Jimmy needs to assert himself more in the first half instead of trying to get the teammates going. But ultimately, I mean, it bore out that it didn't really matter. In the second half, they came to play. They were, pushing the pace. They were dictating. As somebody tweeted out, I can pull up my Twitter. They had my thoughts exactly when I was watching the game, in that the Celtics offense kind of looks disjointed. They don't look as though they have any kind of game plan, and this isn't the Eastern Conference Finals. Whereas the Heat, grinding, knew exactly what they were going to do, just running, specific sets left and right. So to watch it, I'll find it later. I don't want to interrupt this just to go back for the tweet, but to watch it, like it was Kemba, it seemed like kept, bailing them out by dribble penetrating and then whatnot. Defense collapsed up and he had like that wraparound pass for the easy dunk, and he was getting shots off. He was 5 of 6 at one point in the first half, and he started off hot, and then Enes Kanter subs in, and suddenly Enes Kanter, does what Kanter does. He gets you offensive buckets, rather. Trying to say baskets and buckets at the same time, but he's a defensive liability. There's your trade-off. He can more consistently get you, points, but is he going to be worth the amount of points he's giving up? Can he D up, Bam enough? Bam ended up with 21 points, him and Goran, both above 20. And Duncan Robinson, dear God, as soon as he touches the ball, he's just launching it from 3. It's really impressive how quick that trigger is. I mean, there was the corner one that Van Gundy pointed out on the broadcast of, like, he barely even caught that. He was in his shooting motion as soon as he did, and it was over on the wing, and he curled around a screen, I believe, and as soon as he was free, the ball was in his hands, and he caught it head high and was just releasing within a 1/10 of a second, and it was in. There was only 1 or 2 times when the ball left Robinson's hands that I didn't think it was going in, even though he shot 6 of 12 from the field, 50%, but it was all from 3. But I would say 10 of those looked good. Only a couple of them were, there was one, he was fading to his left, over on the far side of the court. And that one was a heat check, just flat out, like, how good am I right now? How hot am I? And, it rimmed out, but still not far off target. And a simple zone defense was enough to befuddle the Celtics. I realize that a bunch of these teams don't really run into zones, and haven't since college. Like, a lot of these players, zone is inconsistent in the NBA, and your better coaches will deploy it. And I think Spoelstra took a nice page out of Nick Nurse's playbook from the previous round. The Celtics didn't know exactly what to do when it comes down to zone defense. And as they pointed out on the broadcast, the best way to kill a zone is A, to get rebounds, and B, basically you need to be in the pockets of the zone to force it to collapse, to get guys to other pockets of the zone. Like sit somebody at the free throw line, depending on what kind of zone. Say they're running like a 2-3. Sit somebody at the free throw line, get the ball into him, and then it forces whoever's in the middle of the paint or one of the two wings to kind of collapse down, and then suddenly you should have an open three-point shooter, or you have somebody flashing to the basket. But even still, like that, it's impressive that a zone is that effective for that long, as Nurse does, and like Pop does, and a few other guys. They'll run a zone, and then they'll right when the defense gets or the offense gets acclimated to the zone, they switch back to a man, and then they switch back to a zone, and they just keep kind of changing things up to keep the offense guessing. And didn't really have to do that much. They did do some switches back to man and whatnot, but man, that zone defense in the third quarter, I mean, the Heat just came storming back. I think the Celtics put up 17 points in the third quarter, I believe, off the top of my head. I don't know. I need to look again at the stats. And you would think with Kemba starting off as hot as he did, and Marcus Smart was feeling it early, and Tatum only had like 2 shots through some point, like midway point or so of the second quarter. So, they're up in this game and they don't really need Tatum right now. So should be the Celtics game to lose. And it was, they were in the driver's seat, and then the Heat answered, and it was just too much for them late to help the Celtics get into like this stagnant offense where somebody sits at the top of the key and just kind of dribbles around. It's like the worst of Houston. As me as just a fan, I'm not a fan of either team, but of the game. Whenever Tatum does that late in game, I don't trust it anymore. Now, having seen it for 2 games, he's going to settle for a shot that's not exactly the best. I mean, I don't much care for it when Harden does it, but at least we've seen him consistently do it to where you don't question his ability to get that shot off. And then we have some people chiming in already from Christian. I have no words for my feelings after the game. How can this keep happening? They look like 2 different teams in first and second half. Yeah, legit worried Heat will take it in 4. I don't know about 4. The Heat, I mean, the Celtics are really good. And I think the reports from Shams and from others that there was a huge dust up in the locker room, that you could hear Smart's voice above all others and stuff being thrown around. And then Smart storms out of the locker room saying, y'all on some bullshit. And Jaylen Brown and Smart were the 2 people yelling at each other. And then late night, Brad Stevens had those 2 plus Kemba and Tatum for a little, meeting of the minds to figure out, A, to squash the beef, and B, figure out like, okay, what adjustments can we make? I don't foresee the Heat winning in 4. The Heat are on a hell of a roll. Only 1 loss so far, 10-1. This is super impressive, but I would be flabbergasted if they manage to rattle off 2 more straight wins. So you never know. I predicted that the winner of the Celtics Raptors would take the East, and right now that looks completely wrong. And I was wrong about the Clippers. I had them to win the championship. It's not like it's been other years, say with the Warriors, where it's done before it even happens. This team is just too good. But the Clippers being so deep just assumed that was going to be it. All right, let's move on from Francisco Ramirez. This Heat team kind of reminds me of the 2011 Mavs. Okay, sure, with what you're saying, with one alpha being the Butler and Dirk. I think the difference, though, between the two is that Dallas team was primarily vets. You had Dirk, and you had the Matrix and Jason Kidd and Tyson Chandler, and they had like what Sean Livingston might have been their youngest. I'm not sure how old JJ Barea was at that point. But I mean, if you're saying it's one alpha and a collection of guys that all play well together as a team, yeah. But I mean, Jimmy doesn't assert himself in the same way that the Mavs needed Dirk to in order to win these games. And the thing is, even if that was my thought about Jimmy in the first half, in the second, you know, he had that deflection at the very last play to knock it back to his own teammate to clear the ball. He also had that steal and then the behind the back pass in. You know, he was putting in the effort everywhere else, which is what Jimmy's always done. The guy exists on hustle, heart, and determination. And, you know, it's benefited him quite well. A lot of people that were haranguing him for choosing Miami because it's Miami and what are you doing? You know, you could have gone to a more championship ready team. Man, all those people better get ready to eat those words, because if they make the championship, he made all the right decisions. I mean, think about it. The Heat were sunk not 2 seasons ago. Like, I hated the Dion Waiters signing. The Hassan Whiteside, I understood why you had to do it because you couldn't just let him leave for nothing, but it seemed like a crazy amount of money for a guy that when he's checked in, he's pretty damn excellent. But that's a big question mark as to whether or not he's going to. And then Tyler Johnson, boy, he's lucky he signed his contract when the salary cap spiked, because he got more money than you'd ever imagine a player of, you know, Tyler Johnson's caliber making. The Heat just cap hamstrung with all these weird contracts of players that I wouldn't want on my team. And now suddenly they've turned it around and they've got, you know, a Duncan Robinson, a Division III player. Tyler Hero's their 13th pick, but a first round pick. None is off the G League. I mean, he was on Golden State's G League team, and that's off the salvage heap. You know, Justice Winslow, who they traded out primarily for Iguodala, and Crowder was the throw-in. And now Crowder is playing massive minutes, hitting threes like this is 8 years ago or 6 years ago. And that ends up now being the focal point of the trade for the Heat. So I think there's a slight similarity, but I think it's a greater disparity between the two than they are similar. All right, moving on. Let's see. Sebastian says, thoughts on Marcus Smart and Celtics locker room explosion and if they can bounce back internally. I think so. I think that is exactly what Smart gives them, which is that fire that they need. Because if you look at the rest of the teams, you assume the way they carry themselves on the court is going to be roughly what they carry themselves like off the court. So Tatum seems quiet, reserved, and confident, just as the Jaylen Brown does. And Kemba seems like a nice guy who's there to play peacemaker. And there's nothing wrong with that. You need that on a team. Whereas Smart is their bulldog. And that's exactly what a bulldog does. Hopefully it sparks them into a win in the next game, or, you know, a non-second half collapse. I'm not pulling for the Celtics. I'm not pulling for any team in this. I just want it to be competitive, good games that I'd like it to see. You know, I'd like to see it go 6 games, 7 games. That's more fun for me as just a fan of the game. But it's not as though these games haven't been competitive. It's been back and forth by and large, even though the Celtics built up a lead. Heat came climbing back in that third quarter and made it super interesting. So Jake Cleveland just says, hey, Matt, what's going on? And if any of you want to join, the email address is at the top of the chat. It's droppinddimesshow@gmail.com. And if you email over there, I will send you the link to this, and you can join in the discussion over there. And Teutonia World, I just saw the email that you sent a little while back, and I'll take care of it as soon as the show is over. I didn't realize you had sent that because I haven't logged into the email account, as you could tell, in quite a while. All right, moving on. Johnny Shoemaker says, yeah, it was tough to watch, and apparently it was all kinds of fighting. Yeah, in the locker room. Christian responded to that. Jake Cleveland chimes in. Do you think if they had Hayward, they'd be playing better with this offense and playmaking? You know, some people were saying, sorry, about to open a can of water here, a little sparkling fizzy water for myself, a little sip here. Some people had the belief of like, wow, we don't need Hayward. We're playing better now. The offense has a better flow, and we have a greater idea of everybody's role and whatnot. But when you have somebody who's inclined to drive and try and help collapse the defense to hopefully open up for other shooters, and he'll sit outside and shoot. He doesn't need the ball in his hands, and yet he can still be a threat when he does, just as a looming threat out there, because he can shoot from three, he's got range, and he is athletic enough to drive and finish at the rim. So to lose somebody like that, you're going to be playing extra minutes from Wanamaker or other guys like that, where they've been solid. But if you could have former All-Star in that position, I think you take it. Will he have rust on him coming back? Probably. And is he going to be able to get enough of a run to shake that rust off? I don't know. I guess it really comes down to how well he's playing early on, because if he can't get some shots up and keep the defense honest, he might have a short leash with Brad, with other guys that are just, their conditioning is primed and they're already, in playoff mentality. So it can't hurt in my eyes. Those that are saying that the team is better without him, well, now through 2 games, perhaps having his offensive punch late in game. I mean, last night it was Jaylen Brown was thankfully getting the shots. And that third one, by rights, he should be the one shooting it because he had the stones to make the previous 2. But to have somebody else out there that is a threat to shoot and that keeps the defense honest, I think would be, a great thing to have for the Celtics. All right, so moving on. Let's see. Sebastian says he agrees if the Celtics can't get game. Oh, that's in reference to a 4-game sweep. If Celtics can't take game 3, Sebastian's thinking that the sweep is imminent. And then Johnny chimes back in with Dragic has been playing unbelievable in these playoffs. He really has. And I think it's a testament to the Heat and Spoelstra sitting them down and basically saying this does not need to be about egos. This needs to be about team. Look at Myers Leonard. He is standing for almost the entirety of the game, clapping, cheering, and rooting on his team. And not to say that other teammates aren't doing that, but he knows that is probably the only way he's going to be able to positively affect his team. So he's doing everything he can to cheer them on. And this is a guy that started for a chunk of the season and played big minutes. And now, just like every playoff team, you shorten your rotation down to 7 to 8 guys. And they really haven't needed his extra length at center. Bam has been more than enough to contend with Tice and the previous rounds as well. I mean, Miles Turner, if he was going to D up on Bam, then they have no other real big. If Sabonis was in there as well, then you need to put a Leonard in there. Perhaps you shift, Jay Crowder over to it, but there hasn't been as much of a need to have the platooning of bigs out there, unlike in the West that's going to get ready to start tonight. I don't see how JaVale doesn't start, because I don't think Anthony Davis wants to D up on Jokic for the entirety of the game, even though Davis would be a great matchup for him because his length is going to really piss off Jokic. But I think they can get away with having the center come back in and then shifting AD over to the 4 and letting JaVale and Dwight platoon against and do as best they can to slow him down, because the Lakers only really need to, at this point, worry about 2 options. But we'll stick with the Celtics and the Heat for now, and then we'll move on. So, I mean, what adjustments do you make if you're the Celtics? What do you do? I mean, Hayward got shifted from not going to play to doubtful in the last game. So perhaps by tomorrow and Saturday, he will shift from doubtful to, game time decision or coach's decision. And maybe he gets some spot minutes, or he comes in with the second unit, the piecemeal second unit, because it's not really a full second unit anymore because of the playoffs. But perhaps he comes in there and he's given more of a green light and can have more of an effect on the offense and get him going a little bit, because as everybody listening and watching out there, more than likely you play basketball, and you know that if you can get a couple shots in, even if they're layups, just to see the ball go through, it'll give you a nice little boost of confidence, and your outside shot will have a better chance to go in. As much as the numbers don't support that, and things like the fallacy of the hot hand, I've played enough basketball and I've watched enough basketball to where I still feel like the hot hand is a legitimate thing. Sometimes the basket just feels like it's 10 times bigger than it normally is. And no matter what you're doing, it's going to go in. You just have one of those days. And if you're a pro, you have more of those one of those days type of situations. So if you can get Hayward in there, make a couple quick baskets, and force the Heat to not rely on their non-starters as much and get those guys back in there and perhaps get them tired late in game. Also, too, once the Celtics were looming with potentially getting the Heat in the bonus, they should have kept taking it to them as much as possible. And at that point, drive as often as possible to get those foul calls to potentially foul out some of those guys, but make it just a free throw shooting contest. Secondarily, the Celtics need to just cool it with the turnovers. They had 20 turnovers last night to the Heat's 12, I believe. And a lot of those were just super careless. There was one where Jaylen Brown went to do a bounce pass to Kemba at the top of the key. It was early in the first half. I want to say it was like 1 minute and a half, 2 minutes into the game, and just bounced it. Kemba wasn't even looking, and neither was Jaylen really when he went to make the pass, and just kind of threw it out of bounds. But they made several of those during the game were just like, that's really lazy pass to be doing in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's a lazy pass in general, but right now you should be so keyed in that something like that would be an anomaly as opposed to seeing it several times throughout the game. I mean, the crazy thing is the Heat last night got up, I believe it's 18 more shots. They took 90 shots to the Celtics 72, and they only won by a scant amount. Plus, they had the turnover differential. Now, the Celtics got more free throws. It wasn't a massive difference, but they still got more free throws, and the Celtics controlled the boards. But when you're turning the ball over that much and you're not getting near as many shots as the other team, I think it's those things coupled with the Heat took and hit more threes overall. I think it was 4 more threes. So, man, if I'm the Celtics and I'm out there, the biggest threat is Duncan Robinson, and whoever he is defending on offense, I think I kind of keep feeding them the ball in the hopes of Robinson will happen what happened in game 1, and he'll get into foul trouble early, and you need to get him out. And then suddenly it's like, Jay Crowder, will this fountain of youth Orlando magic continue? Perhaps, but it's, we've also watched Jay Crowder over the last couple seasons, and it's not like this where when he was shooting last night, the confidence in his stroke, it's like, as a viewer, I was like, that looks like it's good. Very rarely did he take a shot that didn't look like it was good. So I would do what I could to get Duncan Robinson out of the game, get him into some sort of foul trouble, perhaps get Jimmy to shoot more threes, take away his driving lanes. Don't let Bam catch the ball down in anywhere close. Try and keep him at the nail or at the elbow. It's a lot of various things, but at the same time, like Tyler Hero was getting to the bucket whenever he needed to. He had a couple really gorgeous finishes. There was one where he was driving down left side of the hoop and ever so slightly gave a little nudge, but then curled up right before he got to the rim and just little baby finger roll straight in. And, for a kid that's 20 years old and it's his first season in the NBA, that was a masterful little finish. So, I mean, the Heat have options. You can slow them down. The Celtics need to figure out that zone defense. So, yeah, I don't know. Will the Heat sweep? I'm not entirely sure. So we got some other people chiming in. Adrian Rodriguez says, got here just in time for the Heat top 10 for life. There you go, Adrian. Then Christian chimes back in. There are 3 days between games 3 and 4. That might give Hayward enough time to come back properly. Maybe it will be too late if the Celtics lose Saturday, but his playmaking abilities are needed. True. And the extra rest will actually only help everybody. I think that's part of the reason that Kawhi was so gassed in that game 7. This every other day when he's got a degenerative leg condition, like he could use the extra rest. That is one where a load management seems legitimate because he'll probably be hobbling later in his life from this if it maintains. So, and these guys is, that's the other benefit of the Heat, is quite a few pundits and talking heads pointed out before the start of the playoffs. Young legs are probably going to carry the day in a lot of this because the schedule is just so jammed in there, and the Heat have technically more young legs in Robinson, Hero, and Nunn. Although it's not like Tatum and Brown are these old cagey vets, but you do have Smart and you do have Kemba. But that being said, the Heat have Jimmy and Goran, so it goes both ways. And Bam's a younger guy too. I don't know, but perhaps the extra time off. So then Adrian Rodriguez says, isn't Hayward's child being born soon? I'm not sure on the dates or anything, but I know he'd have to quarantine and all of that. Yeah, originally before it all started, he said he was going to leave for the birth of his child. And yes, I remember the tentative date was sometime right around now. So when he sprained his ankle, it was like, oh, okay, you're going to be gone for 4 weeks plus however long, for the child. Even if you get tested every day that you're out, then you have to come back and you have to quarantine for a short number of days when you get back. I'm not sure. Maybe he amended that now that they're down 0-2. Perhaps he told his wife that much as I would love to have come, my team really needs me. And if we want to make the finals, I need to be here to do this. And I think she would understand. And I also think his child would understand. Yes, you're missing the birth of the child, and that is a huge moment. It's only going to happen once in life. So I would assume he's still going to leave. But if he stays, I can understand the mentality. You're going to be there for the rest of his life. How many opportunities are you going to get to make the pinnacle of your sport and potentially cement your legacy and set you up for the rest of your life? Just in that, the more championships you win, if Jordan doesn't win his 6 championships, do his sneakers sell as well today? Now, they were iconic at the time, but they're also associated with who most consider the greatest player of all time and an unstoppable force. And there's all this, the marketing and the branding that was all built around it at the time, and it steamrolled and had this effect on the culture. So if Hayward can win this championship and say win another, well, your sponsorship deals going forward for the rest of your life are going to increase. And, look at Shaq. Shaq has an over-the-top personality and larger-than-life persona, which also feeds into that. But he's a champion, and he did it under the greatest pressure. And now you see him hawking goods for any product that apparently is willing to cut a large enough check. And that can happen if you're a winner. If Steph wanted that for the rest of his life, he easily could get it. So anyway, do I think Hayward will be back? I would assume so in this next game. All right, let's shift over to the Western Conference. And apparently everybody, the chat is lively. We can keep going. Numerous people keep chiming in. We're probably at, 20, 30 people chatting thus far. But I have not gotten one email yet. So nobody wants to join in and do a quick little drop in on the show. That's fine. Or perhaps you're in a situation where you can only watch because you're at work and you can't join in on the discussion, whatever it is. But I figured I'd get at least one person. So far, no dice. Well, we'll try it again in the future. I don't really care. And so long as you guys are joining in the chat, it still makes for a discussion back and forth as opposed to a monologue. So in the West kicks off tonight, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, my time, which is awesome because then the game ends and I still have, it's not the end of the night like people on the East Coast where the game's not going to end till 12:30. That's one of the benefits of living on the West Coast. Like football ends and you can still do stuff. Monday Night Football ends and it's not the middle of the night. It's pretty great. There are times like waking up for 10 a.m. games on some Sundays isn't my favorite thing to do in the world, but still do it. Still better than spending, my entire day being killed with football. So yeah, now people are chiming in as to why they can't. That's fine, guys. Don't worry about it. We'll do this again another point on a Wednesday or Friday, but I figured some of you would join in. But it's people are saying that they're on their way to something and they just have the app open. I'm assuming for YouTube, and others at work. I get it. Don't worry about it. Not all of us can sit around and shoot the shit about basketball in the middle of a day on a Friday. Thankfully I can, and it's thanks to the way I've set up my life. But anyway, so over to the Western Conference. So I think the key, now everybody's chiming in. I'm also at work. I think the key for tonight is on both teams. It's kind of the same thing. Make anyone else other than the top two players take this game over. It's the same. It's the exact same thing. I think the difference between the two is because the Nuggets have somebody that sits on the outside and somebody that sits on the inside. To take those two away, it's a little bit a slightly different game plan. Whereas with the Lakers, I almost said the Heat. With the Lakers, if you can take away the paint and force Kuzma and KCP and Rondo, Caruso, Danny Green to make shots from the outside, I think that is a quicker route to a victory for the Nuggets, as opposed to if you're not going to D up AD onto Jokic, then asking JaVale and Dwight to shut him down. And then meanwhile, probably I would assume KCP on Jamal Murray to start. And then if he gets too hot, switch over LeBron to him. And then if Porter's in there, then put AD on Porter. And you've got JaVale / Dwight on Jokic. Now they're not going to be able to shut Jokic down, but perhaps they can slow him up just a little bit. But yeah, if I'm the Nuggets, I force anybody not named LeBron and AD to shoot from outside. I would give them, if it takes doubling, or even tripling any of those guys, they get close enough, whether it's AD or LeBron, to the rim. And LeBron can shoot from 3 too. So you need to be respectful of that. But nobody finishes better at the rim than the Lakers. They do two things really well. That and fast break points, transition points. They're the best in the league. During the regular season, the difference between them and second place was, massive. So they run the transition better than anybody, and they finish at the rim better than anybody. So if you can take away the finishing at the rim, which is what AD and LeBron do so well, now you're asking, quote unquote, playoff LeBron, or not playoff LeBron, playoff Rondo, or Kuzma or Caruso or KCP. And KCP is their best 3-point shooter right now, but I still don't trust them. Forcing them to take the game in their hands. Like, hey, Markieff Morris, let's see you hit 3 threes, 4 threes before we're going to respect it. And if you can slow down, if you can stop the tandem of LeBron and AD from getting 70 points and say you get them to only get 40 points, that should be a recipe for, at the very least, keeping this a tight game, if not winning the game. So that would be my game plan if I'm Malone. Now, I am not an NBA coach. So I would imagine Malone is going to have many more wrinkles than just that obvious tactic. But if I'm Vogel, well, it's hard not to trust in LeBron and AD, and especially with LeBron. We've all said that he has been the coach GM of numerous teams that he's been on, and he is truly a floor general. Him and Chris Paul fits it even more so. But LeBron has now seen every defense that could ever be thrown at him. He's played with numerous different configurations, and he's gotten them to the finals on countless, years. So you have to trust in that ability and his ability to see the other team's strategy and help formulate and come up with it. Come up with Vogel and that coaching staff. Okay, here we go. Finally, we get somebody that wants to join in. So I'm sending you the link once I see that you've joined in. Anyway, I would trust in LeBron being able to help assess the situation at hand, because Anthony Davis is going to defer to him at all times, as he should, as any player on that team should. So the rest will fall in line, lockstep with whatever strategy that he and that coaching staff can help devise. And I'm not saying that the others won't have valuable input, especially Rondo. There's a great clip of Rondo. This is how good and astute he is. He was playing with Boogie. I don't know if it was with the Kings or with the Pels. I think it was with the Kings. And it's at the end of a game, and it's on an inbound play. And Rondo is yelling at Boogie, go stand in the corner where there is no shooter. Go stand over there. And Boogie's looking at him with that same kind of petulant Boogie look that he has on his face at all times, which sucks because that dude has all the talent in the world, and I want to love him. I really do. But when he looks like he just shit his own diaper at all times and he doesn't want anybody to change it, it's really hard to like the guy. But he's yelling at Boogie, go stand in the corner where there is no shooter right now. Fucking trust me. And the play develops, and it is all designed to get that shooter open in the corner because nobody's going to D up on him, and it'll be wide open, and the kick down to him to shoot, and it completely stops the design play in its tracks. Kings win the game. So I do have faith in LeBron. All right, I am going to get, it was Adrian Rodriguez has joined in. Everybody else is stuck at work. So Adrian is joining me now. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm also at work, actually. But
oh, are you? So you're taking a quick 5 to jump in here?
Taking a quick 2-week notice before I start a new job. So yeah. Hanging out.
Bam, out of the bayou. That's a good
sir. Shout out to Kendrick Perkins, the newest Heat fan on the bandwagon.
Yeah, well, enjoy it until you guys lose a game, and then suddenly Kendrick is your biggest, critic. Some of the worst hot takes. Yeah. Some of the worst.
Oh man, yeah, some of the worst. It was. I thought the season was over, the postseason. As soon as he started jumping in, weird times. Thank you for having me on, man. By the way, big fan.
No worries. Thank you for joining me. Everybody else seems to be stuck at work, and you were like, "Fuck it, I'll come on for a minute." Yeah, my favorite is the Kendrick when he's trolling on Twitter, and he's like, "My top 5 power forwards of all time." And he's got 4 Hall of Famers, and he's like, "And Paul Pierce," and you're like, "Get the fuck out of here with Paul Pierce." No way.
Right.
That's a Paul Pierce statement where Paul Pierce puts himself at number 2.
Mr. had a better career than D Wade because he had LeBron and Shaq and prime Shaq, by the way.
Exactly. I'm not the biggest, I like D Wade. I understand why Heat fans love him to death. Exactly. And he's a Hall of Famer. But as soon as you make those two comparisons, like Paul, D Wade is much better than you.
Yeah. It's just the tape is there.
Yeah, you can watch it. Yeah. Although, D Wade pump faking from 3 was always it's like Rondo before this playoffs, pump faking from 3. It's like nobody's buying this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I came into the show late, so I missed all the Heat stuff, but I don't want to go over anything that you've already touched on. But I was seeing some questions coming in the chat since you want to get all interactive here.
Sure. What do you got? I haven't looked over in a minute.
Someone was talking about the Sixers, and I haven't trashed the Sixers for a while because now we're all kind of dumping on the Clippers at the moment.
Sure.
But
it's from Owen Hart.
Yeah.
Sixers tried to get rid of Ben Simmons and maybe try to acquire James Harden, maybe in the 3-team deal. You'd have to look at salaries because they're going to throw in something else.
Can they afford that?
Yeah, hypothetically, so long as you get, I think it's within 80% of the salaries, you can make it work.
Right.
within the CBA. Yeah, they could. They're just going to have to put in, I mean, Ben Simmons plus something else of value to make it. I'd have to look at Basketball Reference or Hoops Hype or somewhere else that has all the salaries listed up. You could make it happen. Do you want a ball stopper in James Harden with the ball in his hands and just have Embiid sit down in the low post? Plus, that's going to clog the lane and kind of kills, like getting rid of Clint Capella opened up the offense.
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I don't know if I do that one.
Yeah, that seems like a weird fit.
Yeah. I'd still love to see Brad Beal play with Joel Embiid. But then you have 2 point guards on the Wizards. And I'm not sure if the Wizards do that unless they can find a suitor for John Wall, and then they just kind of blow this whole thing up. But that's a lot of salary to move. And you're going to have to, you're going to have to attach picks to get rid of John Wall. You got any thoughts on
just take him straight up like that? What was that?
You got any thoughts on tonight's game?
Tonight's game, I am just still kind of getting over the anxiety of the first two Eastern Conference games, so I haven't put too much thought into it. I'm excited. That's all I know. But I mean, after what happened in the second round, I just can't wait to see what Joker and everybody's going to put. Like, God forbid the Lakers go down 3-1, because then at that point, everybody on ESPN and is gonna, the storylines are gonna come out, and it's gonna be it's gonna be a nightmare.
I know. Still though, Jamal Murray has now proven that he can put up points. He can flat out put up points, and so long as the rest of the team, Gary Harris and Jeremy Grant, we need you to be defensive stoppers, and Harris, get your shots in when we need you to get your shots in, and Michael Porter, basically be the athletic freak that you are. They're going to be a handful. That's when he's performing. Yeah. It's like every other matchup for me, at least with the Lakers so far. It's like, I love their top two. And then after that, usually I like the other team.
Caruso.
Yeah. I like Caruso. He's an interesting player, but I like the potential of Gary Harris and the potential of Michael Porter Jr. and the potential of what Jeremy Grant can give him defensively. It's like, that's super interesting, but at the same time, you still got to deal with LeBron and AD.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
What do you foresee that one going?
As a selfish NBA fan, I would like to see 7 games. Realistically, I don't know, man. I don't want to count the Nuggets out, right?
I know,
but like, they've already proven the last 2 series you should do that. I don't know if you can really think that LeBron and AD are not going to win the series.
It's hard to bet against, and now the path to a championship got so much easier for the Lakers, because there's no massive looming threat of the Clippers.
Yeah, Kawhi's finger isn't looming over, LeBron. Yeah,
exactly. It's one of my favorite, LeBron. I know he's in his brain, because if you go back and look at, I think it was the year that they lost the championship to, 2014, when they lost to the Spurs.
Spurs.
And LeBron is at the line shooting.
Thanks for bringing that up, by the way.
Yeah. And Kawhi checks back in, and LeBron looks over and sees Kawhi, and he just goes, fuck.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to deal with a dude whose hands are bigger than my head.
Oh, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. It just is a fucking robot.
Flippers. Fucking cut flippers. Yeah.
Exactly. And just methodical.
Yeah.
There are no highs and lows. Yeah. He's just out there to play basketball like a fucking machine.
He just clocks in. He plays better than almost everybody most of the time, and goes home.
Yeah. So to not have that and then not have to deal, because I think the Clippers would have been fully keyed in to play the Lakers. Unlike this.
Yeah, this would not have happened. What happened with the Nuggets? They would have put up some fight. I mean, it wouldn't have been like that last game where the entire fourth quarter, what did they score? Like, I forget, like 15 points or something ridiculous.
I mean, they didn't score until 4:52 left in the fourth quarter. It was so sad when they pointed it out on the broadcast. Because I keep notes, running notes during the games.
Right.
And I was like, really? I mean, I knew that they hadn't scored, but I didn't realize it was the entirety thus far of the fourth quarter. And you could see it though. I mean, if Kawhi is going to be off, who else is going to consistently be able to get them a bucket? I have no idea.
Yeah, playoff Pete wasn't doing it. That's for sure.
No, I've never been a big Paul George fan. And I love the trolling of Dame.
Yeah.
After the game.
So good.
Sent him the clip of that side of the backboard three, and he's like, I don't know, look good to me.
Look good to me, yeah.
Yeah, just like
him and CJ just going back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, CJ eventually having to say, listen, man, I got to check out. Like, I'm going to turn off my phone for a while because this is going to get nasty.
He did plug his wine, though, or something right before the end. I saw that. Yeah.
Why not?
You got to slide in the business move. Wade, again, being a front runner in that industry.
All right. Well, I've had a few other people ask for the clip for the link to get in. So cool. I'm going to drop you out, but anything you want to say before you get out of here, or plug or whatnot?
I'm unrealistic. No plug. Unrealistic Heat fan expectations. Heat in 4. Let's go, baby. That's
Heat in 4
all the way in the finals.
The ball.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, thank you for coming on, Adrian. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Have a good one, man.
You too, brother.
So to those, a few more people emailed requesting the link. I sent it out at the beginning of that with Adrian. So maybe one of you will jump in. And here comes one now. I will jump him in. Is Owen Hart back from the grave, sir? How are you?
How are we doing? I've been a big fan.
All right. Who's your team?
Celtics.
Okay. So as the previous discussion at the beginning of the podcast, how do you feel down 0-2? I mean, obviously outside of yes, it sucks to be down 0-2. Do you think there's a remedy for this?
I think the biggest thing is that those were very winnable games. It's not like it was 0-2 in terms of like the Pacers Heat, where I feel like we just were outmatched. We gave up those 2 games. So when I look at 0-2, I think we just need to step we were up 17 in that game. So I think that if you just keep going that way, I'm not too worried down 0-2. I mean, tomorrow night is basically do or die because teams ever come back from 0-3. But I'm not super worried. I'm worried about the whole Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown thing, but I'm not worried about that. If I don't know if you talked about that. I joined late.
Yeah. I mean, I brought it up earlier. See, I think that's exactly what the team needed.
True.
Because he is their bulldog. So you need, otherwise, like Jaylen is a very intelligent, respectful, and he considers his thoughts before he says them. And Tatum seems quiet, confident. Kemba seems like a peacemaker, nice guy. There's nothing wrong with any of those things, but you do need a bulldog.
Yeah.
So that's precisely why you have Smart. And if he has that blow up, it's not as though it was an anomaly. If you saw Gordon Hayward do that, that would be crazy.
Yeah. What did you think about the last second lob in for their last shot attempt when Jaylen Brown tried to get the lob in? Do you think that was a bad play, stupid play?
I think the mountain was so high with so little time left.
Didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter to me. Right when Jimmy got that steal and threw it back in, I knew you guys were toast.
That was what was that with a little under 2 minutes?
Yeah, it was
1 minute.
You needed a bucket right there to staunch the bleeding. And as soon as he got that steal and flipped it around and went over to, was that Tyler Hero or Goran Dragic? It was one of the two.
I think it was Dragic. I don't know. Yeah.
And he got it at the top of the key, and I was like, doesn't matter. Then they got the easy bucket underneath. But I was like, at this point, they're just playing. You can tell that the basketball gods are on their side right now. Yeah.
I know you're not a Vegas guy, but I was wondering if I could just throw out some of the lines going forward tonight, see who you would take over under. So Jokic points is 23.5.
Do you have a points plus, like rebounds? Last year I went 29-32 for a friend in Vegas. On those,
his points, rebounds, assists is 41.5. Points, rebounds, and assists total 41.5.
41. Okay, what else you got? What about Murray? What about LeBron? What about AD?
Murray points is 24.5. Points, rebounds, assists is 35.5 for Murray. Murray made threes 3.5.
Okay, I would take the over on the threes.
Yeah.
What was his points again? 24?
24.5, yeah.
24.5. Boy, that's because it's either 20 points or it's 40.
Was it that game 7 against the the Jazz where he was coming off like 15, he had like 19, like he just had
Yeah.
a cold night because he was exhausted. He couldn't do it for sets for
Everybody
4 games in a row.
Both
Yeah,
of
yeah.
those teams shot like shit. Everything was up
Yeah.
on the rim because they had no
Nothing
legs.
was nothing lit. Here's one that I thought was surprising. Jeremy Grant, 10.5 points. I think that's pretty low.
I don't know though, because there are games where Jeremy Grant has 4 points, but he was in there for his defensive presence at all times. So it's 35.5 for Murray with points, rebounds, and assists.
And 41 for Joker.
Okay, man. I think I take the over on Joker because I'm guessing he's going to be the fulcrum of their offense tonight.
Yeah. And he's going to get a handful of assists probably. He's probably going to be at top of the key distributing.
Especially if they're going to keep JaVale on him or Dwight. Now, if they switch over AD, the ball won't be in his hands as much because AD's length will give him problems and won't be able to pass out of that situation as readily. And I would take the over on points on Jamal. But then the points is like, I don't know about that one because he can easily put up 28, 2, and 1.
Yeah.
He's not in there for his rebounds and assists. He's in there for his offense. What do you got for LeBron and AD?
AD points 28.5, rebounds 10 even. And points, rebounds, assists is 41.5 for AD.
Points, rebounds, and assists is 41.5?
Yeah. Looking tempting for the over?
I would take the over on that.
Yeah.
I think the rebounds is right on the money. And the points is fairly close to right on the money.
Because they don't have anybody else they can throw at. Would Grant ever guard Davis and then they throw Joker on like JaVale if he's in?
Yeah, I think Joker for sure will more than likely stay on whatever center because he's too much of a defensive liability to put on Davis. Davis will just cook him more often than not. Not saying he's the worst on defense, but he in no way, shape, or form is he known for his defense. So yeah, I'd put Jeremy Grant or Porter or Millsap.
Yeah.
And try and get one of those guys to slow down and potentially do it as all these guys can get fouls type of situation. And we just need to slow down because I make anybody but those two for either team. But, for the Lakers, anybody but AD and LeBron, if you can slow them down to 18 to 20 points apiece, although LeBron can still get you 16, 15, and 12.
Yeah.
But it's more so the AD, you need to keep him below 30, but I would say below 24 to 22.
Do you think, did you say KCP, do you think he's going to guard Murray?
I would assume they start there because defensively, I mean, if they had Avery Bradley
on him would be their dream because he could slow him down better than anybody else on the team.
Yeah, he could actually, I mean, that's their best wing defender who's not on the team right now. So otherwise you're going to be relying on Rondo, Kuzma, Caruso, to do it. And I'm not sure that any of them are any more capable than KCP. And KCP, I think, is with his length, gives him the best ability.
Yeah. Also, just for the game, the Lakers are minus 7.5 for the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I might take the Nuggets and the points, and Lakers still win, but it's a 5-point win.
It's a big spread.
Yeah, it is 7.5 on an open. It's not like there's home court. If this was in LA, that's justifiable to me.
I guess they're thinking maybe the Nuggets are more tired. They came off of 2-game sevens when Lakers played 10 games opposed to 14 games. That's only but they had rest time. They had two extra days off, an extra day off.
They had an extra day off as opposed to the game going into game 1 against the Clippers, which I would have bet. I actually looked up some gambling sites because the line on that was obscene, and it was like, dude, the Clippers are going to win this going away. It's not even going to be funny. And technically, it's not legal here to do in California, so I did not make a bet.
Yes.
Every once again, I'll actually put my own money on, but by and large,
I don't get why it isn't federally, because they can just make free tax money off of that if they make it nationally legal. Because you figure they could just the same thing they do with marijuana. It's like, let's make money off this. People are gonna do it anyway. Let's put some whatever like tax.
It's easier to shift it to a state by state and a locality because there's going to be certain areas that don't want it at all costs. So there's no point in doing it. So let the states decide. All right. Well, who are you pulling for tonight?
I'm pulling for the Nuggets just because I like when it doesn't go according to the NBA script. So I think if like a Nuggets Heat finals, like the NBA would hate that, but I love it when like they just goes out and it isn't like the two LA ball like the big markets. I like when they kind of goes against like what everybody
Sure.
expects. Yeah. So I like when it gets blown up.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA would hate the Nuggets making it. They'll never officially say that. It's a good story. It's
No,
the West all the more competitive, but they need the eyes for they've already pre-sold the ad revenue, but at the same time, it only helps them with their partners, quote unquote. If they have the most eyeballs, and the most eyeballs is going to be guaranteed by LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers making the finals. So if the Nuggets get up too much, be on the lookout for some wonky calls.
Exactly. I have conspiracy that's what happened in Game 6 of the Celtics. That they didn't call that foul on Kemba because they wanted to go 7. I still think that's because of the market and they wanted 7 games.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
And it made for great television.
Great series. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything you want to say before you get out of here? Anything you want to plug?
Plug Days and Reviews podcast. It's a podcast I do with my buddy. It's a movie podcast. And then we also had a sports one that isn't on right now, just we lost the steam of it. But yeah, Days and Reviews podcast. Got inspired by you because you were just like doing your own thing and just like talked about sports and basketball. I was like, I'll do that too. So thank you.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, hopefully people tune in, but if nothing else, it's an excuse to watch more sports because God damn it, you got a show to do.
I'm worried about the next season. Who knows how late it's going to start.
They've already pushed it back. They're going to wait for fans to come back, I think, on some level, but there is a point of no return where they have to do it. So beginning of December, Adam Silver, rather, I almost said, David Silver for David Stern Hybrid, has already intimated, he's been quoted saying beginning of December is probably going to be a little too soon. So perhaps the Christmas Day kickoff is going to be where they actually start the season. And a lot of owners and GMs have been pushing for that for years because they get slaughtered by the NFL for the first 2 months of the season. That's why that in-game or in-season tournament was being floated around of something to get people to pay attention. But NFL's on in this country. Nobody cares.
Exactly.
So, but thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
No worries, man. Stay safe out there.
You too.
Enjoy tonight's game. And, hopefully I see you on Wednesday.
Sure thing. See you.
All right. Later, bud. Yeah, last year I did well on betting. I bet none of my money. So who knows if I actually put my money down, how well I would have done. But a friend of mine went to Vegas 3 separate times and would send me the sheet. And it's all that X plus Y plus Z equals this. Do you want to bet the over under? I went 29 of 32. Not bad. Not bad. And on one of those, I actually got him to parlay them. So he made a decent little chunk of money. It's not like he put up huge. It was $50 on this, $100 on that. It was mostly one-off bets, but he still made some money. So I did well last year. But I kind of need to, it's easier to do if anybody gives a shit, at least it is for me, by game 3, because then you have a sense of how the defenses are playing each other. And you've seen the micro adjustments from game to game, but also quarter to quarter and between halves and whatnot. So you have a better understanding. So as a series progresses, it gets easier and easier. Although they lock those in they dial them in, the sports books do that much better. And who knows, this year I could go 3 for 32. So it's not like I'm sitting here trying to sell a gambling podcast and be like, hey, get mad in those lock of the week. You just got to sign up for this. I'm not saying that, but last year I had a good year playing with someone else's money. So, thankfully I don't care about gambling. Otherwise I'd probably get myself in trouble, thinking I know as much as I know. But so I am looking forward to tonight's game. It's going to be, it's so good. It's so good, guys. Western Conference Finals is here. This is the best time of year. When I told my wife, I was like, hey, heads up. It's pretty much a game every night for the foreseeable future. And just to look on her face of like, man, I hate the NBA. You're like, well, I love it. I love this game, baby. I love it. I will watch it all from tip to finish. And hopefully tonight's game is as good as last night's. As a passive fan, as a Celtics fan, last night must have, the roller coaster of that, of being up double digits and in full control to losing the game at the end of the second half. The offense looks completely disjointed, and you have no idea where you're going to get a bucket from because it just seems like everybody's just waiting for their turn to shoot as opposed to within the flow of an offense and movement. But hopefully tonight is closer to what that was in the second half. It just back and forth type of thing, or what game one was, where it's just one side, a lob of volleys, the other side back on their heels, but then they now return fire. And it's just this trench warfare type of thing where it's 17 ties, 5 lead changes, and it just nodded for the whole game. I think that 7.5 points is a bit ridiculous. The only reason you could say that is because the Lakers had more time off, but I still think 7.5 is too high. If they made it like 4.5 or 5.5, then I think it's a much closer, an easier choice to pick the Lakers. But if you can get the 7.5 points, I think the Nuggets can keep this within 3 to 4 points. It's possible. Hell, the Nuggets could win. They have, if Jokic and Murray continue to play like that, that is a tandem that is going to be utterly unstoppable. Now we'll see if Jokic can get the crazy number of rebounds that he did, because he'll still have to contend with LeBron, AD. That's one thing the Lakers have. They got a ton of size and length. It's just the shooting, spot up shooters with Danny Green. Doesn't look anything like what Danny Green always looked like. He was the odds-on favorite to be their leading three-point shooter coming into the season, even though KCP's kind of held that mantle to some degree over years past. But you assumed to be Danny Green or potentially Kuzma would do the full ascendancy to third. So yeah, get anybody else on the Lakers not named LeBron and AD to hit from outside and just pack the paint, force them to shoot from 14-ish out. Just don't let them get any closer than that. And if they beat you from 3, so be it. But it's not like they're the Rockets or the Warriors of previous years, or shit, even the Heat and the Celtics. I think have better, consistent, or more reliable shooters that I trust. I mean, shit, at this point, Robinson on the Heat, I trust him as a three-point shooter more than anybody on the Lakers. That's crazy. Guy's a rook. He was a Division III player, wasn't supposed to be in the league, and now he is arguably the most consistent three-point shooter left in the NBA playoffs. Good for him and good for the Heat. All right, well, enjoy the slate of games over the weekend. I know I'll be watching. I will be back here on Wednesday. I should have a guest on Wednesday. I have a tentative yes. He's got to make sure his schedule is clear. And that is it. Thank you so much to everybody that follows along on the channel. You can find it at youtube.com. And I need to change. I can do a custom URL at this point, which I haven't done yet. So I'll let you guys know what that is in the future. Otherwise, you can just follow me online at Matt Knost and catch the updates when I'm getting ready to go live for all this. I think I'm losing Twitter followers for all the NBA coverage that I'm doing, but that's not going to stop. So, thanks for coming along for the time that you did, I guess. But anyway, you can follow me anywhere at Matt Knost. If you haven't and you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. I'd thoroughly appreciate it. That is it for today. Enjoy the rest of your weekend NBA action, and I will see you guys again next week, next Wednesday, going live at noon as per usual. Adios.